Welcome back, everyone. My name is Dave Holman. I have with me my good buddy Pete Connell. This is the second interview we're doing with Johnathan Trotta, who is our Republican candidate for first Selectman in Guilford. Johnathan is a three-term member of the Guilford Finance Committee and is also chairman of the Republican Town Committee. So Johnathan, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for doing these videos, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
All right. To prepare for the campaign, the Guilford RTC had conducted a random survey of the unaffiliated voters in Guilford to determine what their main issue was. In other words, what issue would motivate them to crawl across broken glass to go and vote in November. For most of these unaffiliated voters, that issue turned out to be high property taxes. But other issues were also prevalent, such as fiscal responsibility, the methadone clinic, and local control over planning and zoning. Johnathan, how would your administration be more fiscally responsible than the current administration?
Dave, I'm glad you started the conversation off with fiscal responsibility, because I think my record speaks for itself on the Board of Finance. I've been a watchdog for taxpayers for my entire political career. Nothing is more important to me than watching how tax dollars are spent in Guilford. And I think I may be the only elected official in Guilford with the political courage to vote no when I see budgets that are too high or I see spending that I think is wasteful. So I think I want to talk about this question a little more in depth and give you some examples of some of the ways that the town has not been fiscally responsible and how I think that I can improve that.
Yeah, please. People need to hear this.
Let me talk about capital spending. Let me talk about the story of three projects. Not too far back, the town bought the property right adjacent to the community center, which we're filming in today. And with a good intent, they wanted to make some more parking. However,
they were going to knock down the building.
They wanted to knock down the building.
Okay.
And they didn't do the due diligence, and it turns out it's a historic building, and now they've been unable to demolish the building and create the parking.
So they bought the property not knowing that it was a historic building.
Doesn't seem like that was in the cards, that they knew they wouldn't be able to demolish the building. But let me tell you another story, another project. There's another house that's up on Durham Road at the intersection of Lake and Durham. And again, they bought a piece of property with good intent. This was supposed to make way for a $3.5 million road project, actually. And apparently, similar story, didn't realize that this was a historic structure. And to this day, the town still owns the house, unable to tear it down, unable to move forward with the project.
Would you call that incompetence?
I do think we need to be more careful with taxpayer money. That's one of the things about an administration that I would run is every project is going to be looked at extremely carefully, and we're going to look at the cost benefits of every project. I think I've said this in our other videos. No project is going to go forward where we realize that the actual intent that we had to buy the property to provide benefit to the taxpayer, that we can't even do it. So, these were, in a way, these were boondoggles. I mean, they wanted to tear down the houses for a certain purpose, and then they realized by their own
incompetence.
Well, by our own bureaucracy and regulation, we actually couldn't do that. I want to talk about a third project. It's sort of still in play. The town is interested in buying the mooring property. In all the town meetings and all the Board of Finance meetings that I attended, it was never mentioned that the restaurant operator actually does have a interest in the property. His restaurant is still an ongoing concern, and he's been trying to sell that restaurant as an ongoing concern because he has an existing lease that's good until 2026, and apparently can be renewed till 2032. So I'm starting to wonder if the town even knew that the restaurant operator had an interest in the project. And for me, that's a very important factor of the project, and I think any plan the town has with that property, we should have considered our local businessmen's interest in that project.
But it's worse than that, isn't it, John?
It is.
Isn't the owner of the Mooring Restaurant suing the town?
He has, and there are some claims that need to be heard. They're yet to be heard, but the owner has looked at the way the town has approached this purchase, and he believes it may have injured his ability to sell the restaurant to potential customers. So that is yet to be decided. But this kind of entanglement, I'm not sure if we did our due diligence and were aware of his interest in the property. And it should have been something that we were aware of and that was discussed. And I personally am not happy that we're interfering with a local business to this level and frustrating his prospects of finding a potential customer and keeping it going as an ongoing concern. That should have been a consideration before some of these announcements were made about our plans to demolish it. I think I've been on record about that project too. Some of the ideas the town has communicated in the paper is that they might have a pocket park or perhaps food trucks. And I personally think the restaurant, if it could survive, is a much better use and provides much better access to that property and that location than food trucks would for our residents.
Right. There is no restaurant on the water in town right now. That would only make sense. But anyway, Pete, do you have a question for John?
Yeah, Johnathan, what about the methadone clinic? How could an addiction clinic be allowed to come to Guilford without any public hearings?
This is an important issue in town, and I know that there's been a lot of meetings and a lot of bipartisan concern about what happened. From what I understand, our zoning regulations actually do allow for this kind of facility, and for them to operate in these particular areas, they do not need a variance, and there are no special restrictions that would require a public hearing. So that's sort of how it happened. But I know there's more to the story.
No,
and Dave, I think that the story becomes very personal when this methadone clinic is in a very close proximity to your own home.
Oh, it absolutely is.
I think your perspective on where a methadone clinic should be allowed to operate definitely changes if it's right next door to your house.
Well, I just want to go back to something you said. You said that our zoning regulations allow for addiction clinics. That's not quite true. Addiction clinics are not mentioned specifically. That particular property was zoned for medical use as a right, and in our zoning regulations, there's no definition of medical, basically. So that's why this happened. But continue, John.
Well, I have some viewpoints on this, and I will say that I have a lot of respect for my opponent. He puts in a lot of effort for our town, and I don't think he's doing anything unethical, and it's within his purview to try and attract businesses to Guilford. But at the same time, I don't agree that this would be something that's good for Guilford. Let me add a little humor to this. This is a touchy subject in town, but if you were a real estate agent and you were going to try and sell a house, I don't think that you're going to go and tell prospective buyers that, hey, this house is only a short walk to the methadone clinic. So I just try to put a little humor on this. Whenever it comes to zoning rules and regulations, it all seems not to be such a big deal, again, unless it's right near your house, right? So this is a big concern, and what I think needs to happen is I do think that the zoning regulations need to be clarified, maybe in your case if that definition is not clear. But I think just go even further, just to say straight out that medical treatment facilities like this have to be in an industrial zone, and that certain restrictions need to apply, perhaps how far it can be from a church or a school, and these
Or a
are
house.
things. These are things that have been brought up by this bipartisan group that has been complaining about the methadone clinic. But the real tragedy in our town, and I think this is where our government was not being accountable, was, to my understanding, there was a valid petition submitted to the Board of Selectmen to have a special hearing on the matter. And to my knowledge, the Board of Selectmen rejected this petition and never held this special meeting. And I think that special meeting should have been held. I think the voices of the concerned citizens should have been heard, and I think that would have led to some action sooner that might have been able to get us to update this zoning regulation so that it makes sense.
Well, there wasn't just one petition. There were no less than 5 petitions. Some of them were signed by a minimum of 450 Guilford residents, and all of them were rejected by the Board of Selectmen without any discussion, based on a legal opinion from our town council. So there was no vote taken, there was no discussion, and there was no public hearing. So this methadone clinic came to Guilford without public notice, without public hearings, without impact studies, without background checks into APT Foundation, and without any needs assessment. And that's the problem. Nobody objects to a methadone clinic the need for these people to go to an addiction clinic. We objected to the process because the citizens of Guilford weren't involved in this at all. It was the decision by one man, in this case, First Selectman Matt Hoey.
And that, that presents a difficult question too. Is the convenience factor for people who are trying to beat addiction and trying to go to this clinic with good intent, does that outweigh the concerns of many residents who live close to such a facility? And I do think a fix to the zoning regulations is the best way to move forward. Just say that this is more appropriate to be in an industrial area and away from residences.
Yeah, well, planning and zoning, the regulations have to be changed. And we did have a petition that we sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And they did discuss it at a meeting, and they did vote on it. And it was voted down 5-2. 5-2. So, we need to open this up again when you become First Selectman. Pete, you got another question for Jonathan?
I do. Jonathan, what do you think about the capital plan for 2028 to build a new public works facility and upgrade the police facility?
Okay, so this is an area in Guilford where I think it's really important for us to really do our due diligence, of course, after going through some of these projects where we bought them and then we weren't even able to use them for their intended use. I do want to throw out there that the information that I've gotten from the town and the Board of Finance has estimated the project at $30 million. Got to admit, I may have an older version, but it's still a very big number. It's a very big concern for me. Some of the urgency that is claimed about moving the public works facilities that's in flood zone, I believe that's very true. Just look at some Army engineering drawings. But I think it has not actually flooded in many decades. So while that is a concern and we do need to be looking at maybe a new place for that facility, I'm not sure exactly the level of urgency because of that factor alone. I think what might benefit the town, and this is the kind of direction I'm always going to be looking for. What are the options? Have we done our due diligence? Are there any alternatives? So an alternative keeps being brought to my attention, and I will have to admit the devil's in the details. But several businessmen have asked me, why isn't the town considering buying the safety zone property? So I don't know everything about this property, but we've got a fantastic building on this property. There's 20 acres on this property. And last look, I think this property, they were asking about $14 million. So, possibly, in my administration, I'm going to put people on this and say, maybe there's an alternative to the plan that's in the works right now, and maybe it doesn't cost $30 million, maybe it costs half as much. But this type of facility is so large that not only could we move Public Works there, but we could probably move many departments from the town there. And this could become a sort of a town campus type approach, which is also one of the visions of the town that I think more people could get behind, because it doesn't usually strike the vision. It's going to cause benefit for all residents. Some people have even discussed the possibility of, this is adjacent to Hubbard Park. Maybe we can expand Hubbard Park. Maybe things like a hockey rink, a swimming pool. Maybe some of these things could come into focus if we were to buy this project and see really what its full potential was. But the bigger story behind my answer is that, it's kind of quick to make a purchase and say, hey, we need to spend $30 million. We got to move this thing right away. And you got to ask yourself, sometimes with the history of these other projects where it hasn't gone so well, are they jumping the gun? Have they really looked at some other options?
What was the price? What could we buy the safety zone property for?
My last look, I believe it was listed for around $14 million.
That's my understanding.
Is that about right? I did look at an appraisal. I think it appraises closer to $5 million. So, we'd have to consider that, and if the property met our needs and it was a possibility, then yeah, maybe it could be acquired and modifications could be made and improvements could be made for less than $30 million with a much bigger benefit to the town. That's an unknown though. I don't want to pretend that's an absolute, but when we're not looking at possibilities like that, then maybe we are jumping the gun and we're taking taxpayer money and we're not doing our due diligence. So that's really the bigger point. Maybe there's another project, another piece of property out there or another facility that might work for Public Works. But the important lesson to take away is to be accountable, to do our due diligence, and to find projects that drive the most value for the tax dollar, for our residents.
No, a good answer. Okay, let's another subject here. What about all the rallies which took place on the green this spring and summer? First we had a hands-off rally, then we had a May Day rally, then we had an Earth Day rally, then we had an LGBTQ event, parade and event, and then we had a No Kings rally. So, I know for a fact that the procedure for use of the green was not followed for any of these events. You're supposed to fill out an application, you're supposed to pay an application fee, and then the Board of Selectmen are supposed to discuss this and vote on it. None of that was done for any of these events. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I really do love our party, and I love the values of the Republican Party, but at the core of my philosophies is a libertarian philosophy, and I consider myself to be an egalitarian as well. And this does upset me, and I think that's not accountability, and that's not right. I want all voices to be heard. And I want all residents to enjoy our town green and other facilities that they can have peaceful rallies at. The content of those rallies, it doesn't matter. But it is not right if a certain group, especially when it's politically driven, is getting some kind of nepotism or preferential treatment. I mean, that's just unacceptable.
Well,
if I'm elected for selectman, that will end. Every person who wants to use a town facility or apply for a permit, anything in town, to reserve the green, they're going to have to meet the same bar as anybody else. I mean, it's just plain and simple as that.
Right. The rules need to be followed, and the Board of Selectmen needs to go on the record as either voting to let this happen or not to let it happen.
Yes, and they better have a very good reason not to let people peacefully protest. And I think this goes equally as well for commercial entities. A lot of people like to bring some business to the green and to bring products and services to people. I think people usually enjoy it, And I think we just need to be fair as well to different businesses
Yeah.
who want to make use of our green.
Yeah, good. Pete, you got another question for John?
The Board of Selectmen, meeting on July 7th, the board unanimously voted to join the Connecticut Municipal Development Authority. As a member of the municipality, I am concerned that this action may cause us to lose local control on our zoning. What do you think?
I think this is a big deal, and this is a big issue that's happening statewide. The state has pushed its influence through groups like Connecticut Development Authority and through grants, and they're pushing municipalities to sort of let go of or circumvent local control over zoning and what projects are allowed in town. And I disagree with that completely. I don't even want the whiff of any kind of state control or state doctrine on what we're allowed to do or if they're allowed to circumvent our zoning rules. Again, I'm an egalitarian. Everyone in town faces difficult regulations, and there's no exceptions when it's the agenda of the state or the agenda of some particular administration that's in our local government at the time. So I would not want to renew our membership in that.
You would withdraw us.
I would.
Well, I think that's good, because as soon as we accept a grant from this organization, we're gonna lose our control, so. Anyway, John.
It's a big issue, and it's around, and we were pretty lucky. Our governor vetoed 5002, which was going to allow the state to circumvent certain local control over dense housing and affordable housing. But that is really not dead, and from what I understand, that bill is going to be reborn in another form, and I really would like to see our legislature realize that that's not in the interest of the localities in Connecticut, and I don't think there's many selectmen that support it, and I hope our governor vetoes it if it gets that far again.
Right, this organization that Pete mentioned that we voted to join on July 7th, that's specifically for high-density housing next to public transportation. So if we take a grant for those things, we're gonna lose our.
Yeah, and I will note that I'm against any kind of assault on our ability to have local control over such a project. But I do see when dense housing can be reasonable, it can help the tax base, it can provide housing that's not in high supply here in Connecticut or Guilford. It can help our elderly, it can help our young people who might want to settle in Guilford and near their families or for whatever reason. So I'm not, it's not that I'm 100% against dense housing, but it needs to be considered carefully. The local residents, the adjacent properties need to consider the effects it has on their properties as well.
Okay. Anything else you want to say to the good citizens of Guilford here, John?
All right, are we wrapping up this interview today?
We are.
All right, so I have to repeat again and again that these economic interests in the town are going to be a high priority, and if I'm first selectman, I want to be accountable for the capital spending that we make and that it provides benefit to all citizens. But I cannot reiterate enough that my objective is to stop the division that I've seen for years and years. It's got to end. I just don't want to see it anymore. There's the people in this great town, 80% of the things we want we have in common, and we forget that sometimes when we argue about the other 20%. So my vision of things in town are going to be some of these projects. Maybe we'll be able to modernize the schools. Maybe we'll be able to go to a town campus type of project. And I think these are things that everyone can get behind. And that's where I'm going. That's the direction I'm going. That's where I want to see the community go, that we're working on things that we all agree on to benefit all of us. So if you like these messages, please consider voting for me on November 4th, because I believe Guilford can do better.
Thank you, everyone.